Okay, this is 10.4 notes. So go ahead and take out your notes. A hyperbola is the set of all points x comma y, the difference of whose distances from two distinct fixed points foci is a positive constant. This is the C value. Okay, Adam, quit talking. I hear you. Every hyperbola has two disconnected branches. The line through the two foci intersects a hyperbola at its two vertices. The line segment connecting the vertices is called the transverse axis. So remember how an ellipse has a major axis and a minor axis? Well, a hyperbola doesn't have that, but it has a transverse axis is where the vertices are, so it's similar to the major axis. The midpoint of the transverse axis is called the center. Okay, a couple things I want to make sure I have you write down as a note is that A is always in the first denominator, and A is not necessarily larger than B. Do you have a question, Ben? All right, so I just want to point that out because with the ellipse, A was always bigger, but in a hyperbola, A is not necessarily larger. Okay, so here's the two standard equations. X squared over A squared minus Y squared over B squared equals 1. That's going to be a horizontal transverse axis. Don't worry about the asymptotes and vertices. We're going to analyze it. We're going to think it through. We're not going to memorize those. And Y squared over A squared minus X squared over B squared equals 1. That's a vertical transverse axis. So let's look at, right before example 1, the foci is on the transverse axis, C units from the center. Notice it's C squared equals A squared plus B squared. That's actually Pythagorean theorem. So it's different from the ellipse, so be careful with that. All right, so if I want to graph in example 1, 25y squared minus 4x squared equals 100. Tyler, what do you think we would do to both sides? You're right. We would divide by 100 because we need it to equal 1. So this is y squared over 4 minus x squared over 25 equals 1. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to identify A and B. So Stephanie, what do you think A is? 2? You're right. All right, Sophia, what do you think B is? 5? Fantastic. So we're going to find C by doing C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So this would be 4 plus 25. C squared is 29. So C is plus or minus the square root of 29. Now we are taking the center at 0, 0 today, and then the next lesson we will move the center off of the origin. But here's the deal, because y comes first, that means the transverse axis has the vertices on it, so my vertex is from the center up A units, and then down A units. So my vertices are 0, plus or minus 2. So there's a transverse axis here. Now watch what we're going to do. This is a really, really neat technique. And what we're going to do is then you're going to count B units to the right, B units to the left, and this is going to give the boundary of a box or a rectangle. okay, like this. So let me repeat this, because y came first. It's a vertical transverse axis, and you're going to go A up 2 units, A down 2 units. Then you go right and left B units, and this is going to give you the corners. The corners are going to give you the asymptotes. Watch this, it's really, really neat. I'm going to go from the corner through the center. That's one of my asymptotes, and then here comes the next one. So the really nice thing about this is we don't need to plot any other points. You have the vertex, and then you need the hyperbola. It has these 2 branches, and they're going to hug the asymptotes like this. So then, guess what? If I want to write the equation for the asymptotes, which I do, you're going to use y equals mx plus b, and you're going to use rise over run. You would go up 2, right 5, but because there's 2 of them, it's going to be y equals 2/5 x. Now the foci, remember the foci are going to be on the transverse axis, c units away. Square root 29, we don't want to use our calculators, we want to use our brains. So Emily, between what 2 integers would we find the square root of 29? Between 5 and 6. You're right. So there's my foci here. And here's my foci. So the coordinates are 0, plus or minus the square root of 29. Okay? So let me recap it one more time for you. Because y squared came first, and a just is underneath that. Okay, it goes y squared over a squared. A squared always comes first. So then I went up a units from the center and down a units. Then you use b to create the box, and that'll produce your asymptotes. All right, example 2. It says write an equation of the hyperbola. This is a typo. It's supposed to say -4, 0 and 4, 0, and vertices at -3, 0, 3, 0. So let's go ahead and plot the vertices. Okay, so that's telling me the center is 0, 0. The other thing is, because the vertices are on the x-axis and that's horizontal, I'm using x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equals 1. So, Abby, what would A be? Well, A is the distance from the center to the vertices, so that's 3. C is the distance from the center to the foci, and if it's 0 to 4, C is 4. So I use C squared equals A squared plus B squared. That's 16 equals 9 plus B squared. B squared equals 7. Now I have everything I need to write the equation. X squared over 9 minus y squared over 7 equals 1. All right, good job today, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.